Hello and good morning. My name is Lunta Di La Paulo. I'm a CPA and accountant here in Chicago. And above all, I am Angolan, I am African. And today I want to go through one of the state-owned enterprise of the Angolan government that was sold yesterday through a private offering. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna be sharing a series of screens so that we go through these together and think through this process in terms of the financials, the auditor's report, and the valuation. So this this bank, um, is located in 18 provinces across Angola, and it has about 82 uh, branches across the country. So yesterday we heard from the news that this bank sold for 16.5 billion Angolan kwanzas to this group, Karimbu. And the buyer is focused in retail of products, food products and drinks, basically. So, one, I'm not sure how it strategically fit the bank acquisition would be with their business model. So if you're wondering what 16.5 billion Angolan kwanzas is in the US dollar, here's your answer. So this is as today's interest rate, 29 million US dollar with some change. So, yesterday it could have been less or more, but that's besides the point. So this is the bank that was acquired, Banco Comercial e Indústria, BCI. So let's look into their financials. But before we dig there, let's see what the auditors were saying about this bank. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to find the financial information for the year 2020 or 2021 from their website. I only found the 2019 in financial information, and with some web scraping, I was able to find the 2018 financial information. So according to the Angolan National Association for Banks, in 2018, this bank represented about 10% of the banking assets of the entire Angolan economy. Okay, so the financials are in Portuguese, but I'm giving you the key components, right? And the banks that represented about 9% of the Angolan the Angolan banking space liabilities. So let me go to the P&L. So this bank's P&L was about 11% of the entire P&L in the Angolan banking ecosystem. So we can see that this is a material bank, a highly material transaction for the Angolan economy. In the US, 26 million for a bank might not be much, but in the Angolan context, it could be something. So let's see what the auditors were saying. As you know, the auditors report have the introduction, the management responsibility, auditors responsibility, the opinion, and then the base of the opinion, auditor signature, and so forth. So, just following the general auditing standards, the auditor is introducing, this is the company we audited, Banco de Comercio e Indústria, and the bank had this much assets, and they had a negative uh, equity balance, and then a negative uh, a net loss of 26 billion Angolan kwanzas and so forth. So but here's what really kind of concerns me. The auditor is saying, hey, the financial statement we were engaged to audit, right? In our audit of the financials, they are, for example, these major liabilities portion, but we haven't been able to gain enough evidence to audit this balance. Equally, the auditor is also saying we weren't able to audit to gain sufficient audit evidence to form an opinion in terms of the reasonableness, or what is the auditing, what's right, the right word. The auditors just weren't able to have enough audit evidence to test the revenues, to test the liability section. And despite all these material accounts that the auditor weren't able to test, the auditor still issued a modified opinion, which to me doesn't even make sense. If you aren't able to gain to audit material account that have a pervasive impact on the financial statement, you should abstain from expressing an opinion. You shouldn't express an opinion on the financial, but they expressed a modified opinion. So that's concern number one, right? Concern number two is especially the fact that 2022 doesn't have financials issued yet. So I don't know if during the offering they made this information available or not, but let me look back into the 2019. So from 2019 financials, we're seeing that the auditor, the company had to restate its financial for 2018. And then in 2019, we're seeing the net loss are getting bigger and bigger. So, from 8.9 billion kwanzas to 26.1 billion kwanzas in loss. So that's, 2.5 times, you know, negative growth, if that's even a word I can use in this context. So, red flags there, right? And then we're also seeing in the cash flow statement that the operating the cash flow from operations is significantly negative. It's a big red. So it's from the restated financials in 2018, it's negative 1 billion to now 39 negative. It's a drastic increase in cash flow, that the company is clearly losing a lot of money. It's absolutely ridiculously losing a lot of money, right? And then we're seeing, the company is borrowing significantly to cover from the shortfall, and that's how they're ending up with a positive cash flow from operations, really, right? So the company also is getting a little bit of financing from the government, paying a little bit of the balances they owe, and that's how we're seeing a positive cash at the end of the period, an increase in cash at the end of the period. So maybe that's part of the reason, the buyers were attracted to this firm. But in terms of the balance sheet, the balance sheet seems to have increased significantly, from 137 billion Angolan kwanzas to 35 billion, Angolan kwanzas to 173. So that looks pretty interesting. But again, most of that increase it's really due to the cash, and we already know where that cash came from. Again, from borrowing significantly. So we're seeing, the liabilities are pretty sizable here, living in a negative equity in this bank. So, I don't understand a lot of the legislation for banks, but according to the protocols of Basel, this is a big concern for a bank. Banks are required to have some level of their own capital in order to prevent, for example, this bank accounts for what we saw about 10% of the banking structure in Angola. So these banks' failure could potentially have an adverse impact to the overall Angolan economy, which at this moment is kind of struggling itself. So where am I going with this? Um, we saw this initial price of 29 million that the bank sold for. Is it a reasonable price for a bank that seems to be in a declining? I don't know. We don't have the financials for the last 10 years, and we don't have the financial for the last 2 years. And based on the financials and the auditor's report, I'm really skeptical about the integrity of the financials of this bank to begin with. Therefore, performing evaluation, building a model for this bank the way that I probably could have done to arrive to my own valuation for this bank, I'm not sure it would be even worth spending time, because if I can't trust the financials, I don't think it's really worth spending time to build a model to arrive to evaluation. So these are my thoughts for this transaction. And the last thing that I want to kind of point out is simply, uh, I would have hoped that the Angolan government would have maybe taken 3 to 5 years to restructure this bank, renegotiate some of the debts the bank have, bringing a really competent management in place to help refine the bank, make some changes, maybe reduce a few of the agencies across the country, invest a little bit more in digitalization to make the bank more appealing, and build new lines of businesses and turn that negative P&L to a positive net, positive uh, P&L. And with the good accounting in place, it's more likely possible to take the bank to the public through an IPO and could have gotten more value if it just waited a little bit, done a little bit more of homework. But in Angola, there is a lot of sketchy stuff. Maybe they sold it to people who are connected to the political elite, as most often things happen in Angola. So these are my thoughts, and I would love to hear your views. What do you think about this? I hope this provides a little bit of light into these, uh, government of private offerings, and I'd love to hear from you. Let me know what you think.